Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're not starting with complex international treaties or abstract science. We are starting with an online concert review.
Yeah, just a simple piece of fan feedback, really.
Exactly. And somehow this one review just spiraled into this full-blown civil war between major commentaries.
It's wild. You've got allegations flying around, misogyny, ageism.
And incredibly actual, genuine legal threats, like serious stuff.
It really is an incredible case study in how modern digital conflict works, isn't it? We see drama online all the time, obviously.
Sure.
But this stack of sources we've got, it gives us this unprecedented look at how fast the discourse can just weaponize.
Right. A critique of an artist's stage presence triggers this chain reaction, and it results in this really specific use. And you could definitely argue misuse of legal jargon by the prominent content creators.
Yeah, misuse is probably the right word in some cases.
Okay, so our deep dive mission today, it's pretty structured. We're analyzing this three-part conflict, and honestly, it offers insights into way more than just, celebrity gossip.
Definitely.
First up, we really need to understand the initial cultural flash. So the controversy around the artist Somber and the critique of his actual concert behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Second, we are going to dissect the, let's just say, controversial defense offered by this content creator, Zachary, who you might know as the Swiftologist.
Right, and his really inflammatory aging out critique. That caused a stir.
It really did. And then finally, this is the real core of the escalation, the public feud and the serious legal sparring between Zachary and another commentator, Adam McIntyre. This is what we're calling the defamation trap.
Okay, so the goal for you listening in is to walk away understanding the mechanics of this kind of high-stakes online commentary. What actually is defamation? When does, speculation cross a line?
Yeah, and why do people, both the artists and the commentators, sometimes choose things like ageism or legal bullying instead of, addressing valid head-on?
Exactly. This whole scenario gives us a perfect snapshot of those blurring lines between opinion, fact, and legal liability in the digital age. It's messy.
It really is. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's just jump right into the source material with what Adam McIntyre kind of aptly calls the somber situation. All right, so the artist right at the center of this Somber.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those listening who might not be familiar with music, he's known for the style that's generally actually very well regarded. Our sources mention popular songs, things like I Don't Want to Get Undressed, In a Room Full of People I Look for You.
Right, and also tracks like How Can We Go Back to Be Friends and Canal Street.
Yeah.
Good stuff, generally.
Yeah, exactly. And even the critic who kind of kicked all this off and later the commentators involved, they all stressed that they were genuine fans of the music itself.
That's a key point McIntyre made, wasn't it? He explicitly said he really, really, really likes Somber's music.
He did. So the music itself, pretty much universally praised. That's a critical distinction here.
Absolutely. The problem wasn't the art. It was the live delivery and the audience dynamics.
Right.
The entire controversy really started with one fan, a 25-year-old woman. She was a paying customer, went to the show because, she loved the albums.
Makes sense.
But her expectation, what she thought the show would be, it quickly diverged from the reality of the live performance. And she then documented that experience in a pretty detailed TikTok story time.
Okay, so what was it that immediately put her on edge? What did she say?
Well, first off, the audience demographic. She noted the crowd was overwhelmingly young. Mostly, she said, preteen and light kids.
Okay, so not the audience she maybe expected for his style of music.
Right. She went expecting something maybe a bit more mature, something that aligned with his sort of melancholy romantic music. But the show itself, she felt, was centered around what she instantly described as deeply uncomfortable and inappropriate cringe jokes and stage behavior.
Okay. And this is where we get into the core substantive criticism, isn't it? The part that the artist's Somber seemed willfully ignored later on.
Exactly. The fans cited specific examples of what she saw as hypersexualized interaction with an audience she perceived as being minors.
Like what?
Well, things like Somber using the microphone stand and swinging it around, and she explicitly described it as him acting like it's his dick.
Wow, okay, that's graphic.
Yeah. And she said he would encourage the young crowd to engage in these really suggestive call-and-response things, specifically telling them to bark for daddy and getting kids in the audience to call him daddy.
Right. That phrase, bark for daddy, that seems to be the one that really jumped out at people, didn't it? It instantly signaled to a lot of observers that this wasn't just standard rock star flirtation.
Yeah, it felt different. The fan also mentioned a specific joke, a 67 joke. Apparently, the kids in the audience erupted laughing at it.
Okay.
Which to her signaled that these were clearly young fans who understood the sort of suggestive nature of the interaction. It wasn't going over their heads.
Gotcha.
And that's really the tension point, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Because Zachary, the Swiftologist, Swiftologist. He later argued this was all just normal heartthrob dynamic.
Right, like boy bands or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the critics, including this fan, argue that behavior like telling a young crowd to bark for daddy, especially when the artist is 20, almost 21, and the audience is mostly preteen, that crosses a significant line.
It definitely elevates the power dynamic into something, well, far more explicit and potentially uncomfortable.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And the moment that the fan specifically described as her broking, the thing that really made her want to leave,
Yeah.
that was the audience interaction segment.
What happened there?
She stated that Somber would call young fans up onto the stage. She estimated they were around 14 years old to talk about their toxic exes.
Their toxic exes at 14.
Yeah, and apparently even get them to call these exes live during the show.
Oh my God.
McIntyre, when he commented on this, he really noted the absurdity and the cultural misalignment of a 14-year-old even having a toxic ex. He sarcastically said, "We are cooked and uncocked."
Right, it shows this sort of detachment from reality maybe, or perhaps, like you said, a calculated attempt to lean into that hyper-dramatic online persona that young demographic sometimes has.
Could be. So this story time gets posted. It's simply detailing her genuine discomfort as a paying customer. Now, Somber, who apparently repeatedly identifies himself as freshly 20 years old,
Okay.
he made the strategic error, really, that turned this critique into a wildfire. He responded directly to her TikTok.
And here's the key failure of accountability, right? Instead of even minimally addressing the substantive concerns about the stage behavior, the mic stand, the bark for daddy, the onstage stuff with potential minors, he just completely diverted the topic.
Completely ignored it. He zeroed in on two aspects of the fan, her appearance and her age.
Okay, how?
Well, he dismissed the video entirely by claiming it was body shame, apparently because she referred to his appearance using the term slender man.
Which is a bit thin-skinned.
Maybe, but the real viral attack, the one that really defined this first phase of the conflict, was the attack on her age.
Right, he went after her for being 25.
Exactly. He attacked her age, repeatedly insinuating that being 25 years old somehow made her criticism invalid. He referred to her age as geriatric, or like a dinosaur.
Wow.
He used this framing of, this 25-year-old decided to come to my show to basically dismiss her right to even critique youth culture, as if she was too old to have an opinion.
And the internet reaction to that was immediate, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, this specific age attack framing, 25 is ain't, it immediately blew up into this massive online. McIntyre called it the Leonardo DiCaprio-esque joke.
Right, I remember seeing that. For context, if you haven't seen it, that meme base taps into this common cultural critique about older men, often celebrities like DiCaprio, who seem to exclusively date very young women. So the joke becomes, if you hit 25, you're suddenly certain cultures or certain men.
Precisely, and Somber played right.
So let's just pause on the implications of that. By attacking the fans' age and appearance, he effectively did two things, didn't he?
Yeah, first, he successfully redirected the whole conversation away from his own behavior on stage.
Check.
And second, he basically galvanized his young fan base to, well, dogpile the fan with abuse online, which our sources confirm included things like death.
Which is horrifying and completely predictable when you target someone.
And this choice is strategically really crucial for understanding the sort of ethical breakdown that followed. His team, or maybe Somber himself, they made a calculation. Ignore the complex ethical issue, the inappropriate interactions with minors, and instead trigger an easy, low-effort controversy centered on ageism and appearance.
McIntyre pointed out the irony too, right? Somber was kind of infantilizing himself, calling himself freshly 20, aligning with the children in your audience.
Yeah.
While simultaneously attacking a woman who was only 5 years older.
The inconsistency is glaring.
So the long-term concern that commentators raised was really rooted in this lack of accountability. If Somber's approaching 21 and his management lets him dismiss valid criticism, especially criticism about highly suggestive interactions with young fans by just deploying ageist attacks,
then that behavior is being implicitly reinforced.
Exact. McIntyre warned that if this behavior isn't nipped in the bud, it could lead to future, maybe more severe problems as he gets older. He suggested the behavior is currently unchecked, probably because, as often happens in this industry, the team is just making money on it.
It's a classic playbook, unfortunately.
So the takeaway from part one is pretty clear. The artist chose deflection and personal attack over accountability, and that really primed the whole situation for a commentary battle.
Absolutely. Which leads us directly into phase two.
Okay, so that brings us to the second phase, and you could argue this was even more volatile. The moment a niche drama like this goes viral, well, the commentators arrive, right?
They always do.
Enter Zachary, known online as the Swiftologist. He's a 28-year-old creator, specializes in pop culture deep dives, especially.
Right.
And he waded into this whole somber situation to defend the artist in a viral TikTok.
And his entrance immediately shifted the focus, didn't it? It went from Somber's stage behavior to the critics' motivations.
Exactly. His core argument was basically one of moral outrage, but it wasn't directed at Somber. It was directed at the fan and anyone who agreed with him.
His main thesis was that this whole thing was just a case of fully grown adults, like 25 to 30-year-old adults, piling on a 20-year-old kid. That was his frame.
Okay, now wait, let's just stop right there, because Zachary himself is...
Yeah, that's the kicker.
He's firmly in that fully grown adult category he's criticizing, the 25 to 30. He's much closer in age to the fan than he is to the 20-year-old artist he's defending.
McIntyre jumped all over that contradiction, didn't he? He sarcastically noted, he's 28. By his logic, he's over the hill, a geriatric dinosaur himself.
Right. It immediately kind of undermines his authority to frame this whole thing as some sort of intergenerational attack.
Completely. So Zachary dismissed the fan's original video not as a valid critique, but as pure hateration. He argued it wasn't constructive, claimed she was just trying to humiliate Somber.
Okay. And what about the actual performance stuff, the bark for daddy thing?
He defended all of it. The suggestive interactions, the call me daddy, bark for me, he argued this was completely normal and even necessary as part of that heartthrob dynamic.
A necessary part. How did he justify that?
He used historical comparisons. He argued this behavior was no different than, say, the intense fan culture around One Direction or Justin Bieber back in the day, or even going way back to the screaming phenomena of Beatlemania in the 60s.
Okay, so drawing parallels to past fan crazes.
Yeah. His argument was essentially that young girls screaming, fainting, projecting romantic or suggestive fantasies onto a boy on stage. That's simply the entire point of this genre of concert, is what they're there for.
Right, and this led him to his whole moral panic.
Exactly. He labeled the discomfort people were expressing, especially the concerns about the hypersexualized nature of the performance being directed at minors. Call that a fake woke angle.
Fake woke. Okay.
He argued that the concert actually provided a safe, supervised, cathartic environment for teen girls to express all that, hormonal crush energy, often with parents present, he added.
So basically, anyone raising concerns was just moralizing young people.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He framed it as a very conservative take to be worried about it.
Now, if we look at the source material, that moral panic argument, it's often used to shut down legitimate conversation.
It can be, yeah.
The sources suggest that while, sure, some moralizing definitely happens online, the specific nature of the bark for daddy dynamic in, 2024, given everything we know about online exploitation and maybe different boundaries compared to the 1960s, it feels uniquely problematic.
That nuance seems important.
But Zachary didn't really want to engage with that nuance, did he?
Not at all. And this is where his defense became truly, deeply controversial. The Swiftologist's most famous and arguably most damaging analysis was his aging out critique, aimed directly at the 25-year-old female.
Yes. This was the part that really blew up.
He claimed she was only upset because she was, and this is a direct quote, no longer at the center of youth culture.
I mean, that's just astonishing. He essentially turned a substantive critique of an artist's behavior into a psychological projection on the part of the critic.
That's exactly what he did. He stated that the fan was projecting her discomfort with youth culture and the fact that you're no longer at the center of it. He even delivered the line, I think this review, what she's really mad about is that she's aging.
Wow. Just wow.
The reaction was instantaneous. That take was so extreme, so obviously leaning into these really tired, misogynistic tropes about women's value diminishing with age. McIntyre immediately called it misogynistic as fuck.
And you can see why. McIntyre argued, didn't he, that Zachary was actively internalizing and amplifying the exact same ageism that Somber had originally.
Precisely. Instead of arguing the merits of Somber's performance, Zachary chose to attack the character and the supposed internal struggles of the critic.
And let's connect this back to the broader cultural phenomena for a second. You have Zachary, a male creator,
By age 28.
defending the behavior of a young male artist, Somber, who's while simultaneously targeting a slightly older female critic who's 25, using the exact same ageist attack that Somber deployed.
It just completely undercut any intellectual legitimacy his defense might have had, right?
Yeah.
He framed the entire issue not as Somber's potential ethical failure, but as the 25-year-old woman's personal failure to, age gracefully? Accept her removal from the center of youth culture?
It's baffling. And this inconsistency, the sort of intellectual dissonance, it led McIntyre to pose that critical, speculative question, the one that seemed to just summarize the sheer frustration of watching a commentary creator deliver such an indefensibly bad take.
Right. McIntyre asked rhetorically, can I start a conspiracy theory? I have no proof. Has this been paid by Somber's management?
That specific question.
That speculative question born out of exasperation, became the launch pad for everything that happened. McIntyre felt the take was just so brain-dead, so clearly designed to defend the indefensible, that the only logical explanation he could grasp for in that moment was maybe undisclosed PR work.
It was clearly framed as a rhetorical question, meant to highlight the absurdity of Zach's position. It wasn't presented as a statement of fact.
No, absolutely not. But that rhetorical flourish immediately triggered a legal response.
Okay, but before we move on to the legal part, just to be balanced, we have to consider Zachary's perspective for a moment, even if the take itself was flawed.
Sure.
I mean, if he genuinely believed the fans' criticism really did stem from some kind of moral panic, maybe he felt obligated to defend what he saw as the safe space of youthful enthusiasm against unfair judgment. Is that a charitable reading?
It's a possible reading, yeah. That's necessary for balance. However, the sources really suggest that even if he believed the core critique was a moral panic, his methodology, that specific misogynistic age attack, was totally unnecessary and disproportionate.
Right. You can make a strong defense of the heartthrob dynamic without claiming the fan is just mad about aging.
Exactly. That choice moves it from cultural critique into personal insult. And that laid the groundwork for the extreme escalation that followed.
And that extreme escalation began less than 24 hours later.
Almost immediately.
Okay, here is where it gets really, really interesting. Because the disagreement completely leaves the realm of cultural critique and enters the world of, well, legal pawing.
Yeah, the gloves came off.
Less than 24 hours after McIntyre's video went live, the one with that speculative paid PR question, Zach Swiftologist, sends McIntyre an email. An ultimatum, really.
And this wasn't like a friendly DM or a public tweet. This was a formal communication. The subject line itself read, "Urgent request for removal, clarification, and retraction of defamatory statement."
Wow, okay. So the legal pressure was immediate and aggressive.
Totally. The core claim was that McIntyre had made a false and defamatory claim by implying Zachary was paid to promote Somber's narrative.
And Zachary didn't just say, my feelings are hurt. He immediately raised the stakes professionally, didn't he? He injected this fear of professional misconduct.
He did. He stated that implying he engaged in undisclosed sponsored content would be illegal under UK advertising and disclosure, which adds this serious layer of potential professional culpability to what had just been speculation.
Okay, that's a critical point. UK advertising laws, like the ones enforced by the ASA, the Advertising Standards, they strictly require creators clearly label any paid sponsorship or commercial.
That's right. So if Zachary was perceived to be paid by Somber's management and didn't disclose it, that would indeed be a violation. And it could seriously harm his reputation and his future earning potential with legitimate sponsors. He relies on that trust.
So Zachary's argument was essentially, regardless of whether McIntyre explicitly said, "I have no proof," the implication of illegal behavior was defamatory in itself because it damaged his professional standing.
Precisely. He alleged this claim had caused reputational damage and targeted harassment.
But McIntyre immediately challenged that, right?
He did. He questioned the logical absurdity of claiming ongoing harm and significant reputational damage happening within such a tight time frame, less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
Especially between two commentary YouTubers who, while they're popular, they aren't exactly international A-list celebrities trading blows. The damage claim felt preemptive and maybe a bit inflated.
And the most jarring aspect for McIntyre, according to the sources, was the tone and the sheer pace of the demands. He was given a literal to-do list.
Yeah.
With a strict 24-hour deadline for compliance.
Let's look closely at those demands because they're like a perfect blueprint for an aggressive legal threat designed to achieve immediate silence.
Okay, what were they?
First, he demanded McIntyre edit or remove the defamatory portions of the video at the timestamps above, or remove the video entirely. Standard stuff, get rid of the content.
Right.
Second, if the video stayed up, he required McIntyre to add a clear clarification in the video description stating that the suggestion that I was paid to promote Somber is false.
Okay, a public correction.
And third, the most public demand. Publish a short formal retraction via YouTube community post on the same platform. The defamatory content appeared, clarifying that the claim was untrue and made without evidence.
Wow. So edit, clarify, and publicly retract, all within 24 hours.
That 24-hour window really speaks volumes, doesn't it? As McIntyre pointed out, it's a completely unreasonable time frame for a serious business or legal dispute. Usually you get 48 or 72 hours minimum for legal teams to even review something.
So it suggests the motivation wasn't really measured professional redress.
It feels more like immediate intimidation and silencing. Get him to fold quickly.
Okay. And that brings us to McIntyre's fundamental legal defense, the distinction between opinion and fact. This is kind of like an ELI 5 moment for defamation. Explain, like I'm 5.
Pretty much. Defamation, legally, requires the statement to be presented as a false statement of fact. So if I say, that politician took a bribe, and I have zero proof, that's presented as a fact and could be defamatory. defamatory.
Okay.
But if I say, wow, I think that politician's speech was so terrible, he must have taken a bribe to say something that stupid,
Yeah.
especially if I have no proof, just my opinion. I am clearly stating an opinion of speculation based on my assessment of the speech.
And McIntyre was careful to frame his statement with that exact kind of disclaimer, wasn't he? Can I start a conspiracy theory? I have no proof.
He absolutely did. But Zachary preemptively tried to counter this in his legal threat. He stated that these disclaimers do not absolve you of responsibility and, get this, that they highlight a reckless disregard for the truth.
Reckless disregard for the truth. That sounds like specific legal jargon.
It is. He was deploying language usually associated with the really high bar of actual malice, which is a standard in U.S. defamation law, especially for public figures. It requires the claimant to prove the defendant either knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for whether it was true or not.
So Zachary was basically claiming that even if McIntyre didn't know, the fact that he speculated with no proof demonstrated a malicious intent to harm his reputation, invoking a very high legal standard for what seems like an off-the-cuff remark.
Exactly. But in the context of commentary, that argument usually fails when the speculation is clearly framed as speculation, especially when the opinion is offered as a response to the perceived intellectual failure of the initial argument. McIntyre argued his speculation was simply an explanation for why Zachary's take was so terrible in the first place.
Right. Okay, so faced with this legal threat and the to-do list, how did McIntyre lawyer up and...
Well, he mentioned having a great legal team around him, but instead of engaging in a drawn-out legal battle right away, his response was, well, it was a masterclass in satirical compliance.
Satirical compliance? How did that work?
He fulfilled all three demands, but he did it publicly and with such heavy sarcasm that the retraction itself only served to make Zachary look kind of worse.
Okay, I need to hear this.
He immediately uploaded a video and posted a community post that completely parodied Zachary's formal language. He performed the short formal retraction, confirming, yes, Zachary made it clear to me that these are entirely untrue statements.
Okay, sounds standard so far.
Then came the punchline, which brilliantly recentered the discussion right back on the original problem. He said, basically, Somber and his team did not pay the Swiftologist to have such a terrible take in his video. He came with that terrible take himself.
Oh, brilliant.
Which I don't even know which ones.
That is chef's kiss. That rhetorical maneuver was fantastic. By legally complying, he neutralized the immediate threat. But by re-emphasizing the awfulness of the original take, he ensured Zachary won absolutely nothing but potentially further public mockery.
Exactly. And this led directly to McIntyre's core accusation, hypocrisy.
Yes.
He explicitly called Zachary a fucking hypocrite.
Yeah.
He pointed out that Zachary himself frequently delivers really strong, often controversial, and highly critical opinions about major celebrities, brands, you name it, in his own video. He comes for people daily, as McIntyre put it.
Right, that's his whole brand, isn't it? Pop culture commentary.
Pretty much. But McIntyre argued that Zachary seemingly cannot tolerate even speculative disagreement directed at himself without immediately resorting to legal threats.
So it's okay for him to dish it out, but not take...
That was McIntyre's. His conclusion here was scathing, but maybe necessary for the commentary space. You won't last long in the commentary sphere if you keep that up. He argued that as Zachary views his own strong opinions about others as protected commentary, then McIntyre's opinion about Zachary's video must also be protected.
It can't be rules for thee, but not for me.
Exactly. McIntyre framed the whole legal threat maneuver as lame and...
Okay, so the primary takeaway from this section really seems to be about the misuse of defamation as a tool of intimidation.
Absolutely. Zachary used the fear of legal action, specifically referencing complex UK laws, to try and bully a critic into immediate silence over what was clearly framed as an opinion, not a statement of fact.
And this tactic often works, right, because many critics just don't have the legal resources or the stomach to fight back.
It often does. But in this case, McIntyre's apparent legal confidence and his satirical compliance immediately exposed the threat as disproportionate posturing, at least in the court of public opinion.
Which just blew the whole thing even wider open.
And revealed there might be more going on beneath the surface.
Okay, the sheer speed and aggression of Zachary's legal response, that immediate 24-hour it really hinted that this conflict wasn't just about one bad take or a single comment about payment, right?
Yeah, it felt disproportionate. It suggested something maybe more deeply personal was fueling this escalation.
Well, I was genuinely curious when reading the sources. Was this just an isolated incident? A one-off clash? Or was there some kind of long-standing history between these two commentators?
And that curiosity was immediately validated by the source material, wasn't it? The public escalation prompted viewers, who obviously already immersed in the drama, to start sending McIntyre alleged messages. Messages apparently from Zachary's private Discord server.
Okay.
Yeah. And these messages seem to reveal a long-standing one-sided beef, as McIntyre put it, that actually predated this whole Somber situation by several months.
Wow, okay, that's significant. So the entire legal legal feud discussed was potentially built on a prior hidden vendetta.
That's what McIntyre alleges based on this evidence.
What was the specific evidence? What did these viewers send McIntyre that made him feel this was personal?
The key revelation, according to the sources, involved the Colleen Ballinger scandal from back in June 2023.
Okay, that was a huge, high-profile, very sensitive topic that McIntyre had covered extensively on his channel.
Exactly. And the alleged Discord message, dated June 30th, 2023, reportedly showed Zachary posting to his private community, allegedly calling McIntyre a fucking loser.
Oh.
And accusing him of totally and completely milking this situation, referring to the Ballinger scandal.
Okay, that language, milking, is incredibly loaded, isn't it? To accuse a fellow creator of milking a really sensitive topic like the Colleen Ballinger situation, which involved serious allegations against her, that's a direct attack on their credibility and their character. It positions Zachary as some kind of moral superior looking down on.
It absolutely does. And the message allegedly didn't stop there. Zachary reportedly went on to suggest that society in general had lost touch with what grooming actually is,
which directly targeted the substance and the sensitivity of McIntyre's specific commentary on the Ballinger scandal. He was covering those allegations.
Precise. So this context completely transforms the Somber situation, doesn't it? McIntyre revealed that, actually, prior to this, he had been a fan of Zachary's work. He even mentioned trying to get tickets to one of Zachary's live shows in New York.
Oh, wow. So he respected him.
Yeah. So finding out that a creator he respected had allegedly been actively discrediting and talking shit about me behind his back, in private, that immediately made the current Somber conflict feel deeply personal.
You can understand why.
McIntyre interpreted this whole thing as Zachary harboring a vendetta against him and just basically waiting for a moment, waiting for any excuse to publicly attack. The paid PR speculation was just the trigger Zachary needed, in this view, to deploy his pre-planned strategy of legal intimidation.
Okay, so in response to this revelation, McIntyre took a professional step, right? He didn't just blast him publicly.
According to the sources, yes. He emailed Zachary directly, asking for comment on the validity of these old Discord. Basically ask, are these real? Did you say this? Or are they fabricated?
Giving him a chance to respond.
Exactly. And McIntyre pointed out he sent this email over 24 hours before speaking about it, publicly mirroring the same rigid compliance timeline Zachary had imposed on.
Tit for tat with the deadlines, okay?
Yeah.
And Zachary's response.
Allegedly, complete silence. Zachary apparently ignored this request for comment entirely, despite, according to McIntyre, actively posting new content on his own social media platforms during that time.
Okay, that silence, combined with the prior evidence of the alleged vendetta, that really flipped the narrative in the public eye, didn't it?
It certainly seemed to. McIntyre felt this behavior cemented the belief that Zachary's true intention wasn't really about defending his professional integrity against a factual libel claim, but maybe just about silencing a long-standing personal critic he disliked.
And the perceived hypocrisy deeped even further in how Zachary apparently handled the immediate public backlash to his own legal threats.
Yeah, McIntyre accused him pretty bluntly of being a fucking coward for his extreme approach to moderation on his own platform.
How so? What was he doing?
McIntyre detailed that Zachary was allegedly obsessively moderating his YouTube community post about the situation, deleting critical comments almost instantly. He claimed Zachary only left up comments that either agreed with him or, worse, comments that actively harassed McIntyre.
Okay, so creating an echo chamber, essentially.
Exactly. It suggests an attempt to create this heavily sanitized internal little bubble, as McIntyre called it, where the narrative of him being the victim could be carefully controlled, which contrasts sharply with McIntyre's approach, which was more like post the video, state his piece, and then kind of step away and let the discourse flow, for better or worse.
Right. And then there was the final layer of irony, wasn't there, about handling things offline.
Oh, yeah. Zachary posted on his community tab claiming the entire legal matter was now being handled offline as part of an ongoing legal process and asked his community for patience, suggesting professionalism, privacy.
Sounds reasonable on the surface.
Right. However, the sources suggest that allegedly, at the same time, Zachary was privately asking his community to keep monitoring McIntyre's activity. The alleged message was something like, if anyone sees anything Adam is saying and writing about this, please send it my way.
Oh, wow. So publicly saying, let's handle this privately, while privately asking for intel to fight.
That's the allegation. McIntyre immediately likened this behavior to the alleged actions of Colleen Ballinger herself during that previous scandal, claiming she had similarly asked her fans to send her anything he was writing about her situation.
The parallel is striking. True.
It is. And this whole sequence of events, publicly demanding silence and privacy, while allegedly privately soliciting information to continue the conflict, it really reveals a significant breakdown in, commentary ethics, doesn't it?
It really does. Zachary claimed he wanted to resolve the matter privately and professionally, but his alleged actions suggested he was trying to maybe manufacture a legal victory while simultaneously feeding the very drama he claimed to press.
And this is a perfect illustration, really, of why McIntyre stressed the necessity of having thick skin in the commentary space. He explicitly stated, you really need to grow a thick skin, and you need to grow it fast if you want to be in this line of work.
Because criticism is just part of the job description.
It is. Zachary's immediate and arguably disproportionate reliance on legal threats for what was clearly framed as a speculative opinion rather than an unverified statement of fact. It fundamentally demonstrates to many observers the misuse of defamation law, using it as a tool for bullying and maybe career preservation rather than genuine redress for factual harm.
He was trying to enforce this impossible standard, was that commentary creators are free to critique anyone and everyone, except when they themselves are criticized. Then the rules change.
Exactly. Ultimately, McIntyre felt that Zachary was either completely disingenuous or just an idiot for thinking that speculating about payment with caveats could actually lead to a successful defamation case.
And the aggressive legal action, ironically, seemed only to solidify the public perception that Zachary was, in McIntyre, a fucking hypocrite who maybe lacked the robustness necessary to survive in that high-stakes, high-criticism world of online comedy.
It certainly didn't help his case in the court of public opinion. Hashtag outro.
So after digging through all of that, what does this all mean? Where do we link? We started with a simple fan critique of a concert, right? A moment of genuine cultural discomfort regarding age, performance.
Yeah, pretty straightforward initially.
Which then quickly spiraled. First, you had the artist, Somber, choosing ageism over accountability. That prompted a commentator, Zachary, to deploy misogyny and, let's be honest, some pretty intellectually dishonest arguments in defense of that artist.
Right, creating an even bigger mess.
And then that indefensible take led to Zachary attempting to use serious legal threats in the defamation trap to silence a fellow commentator, Adam McIntyre, simply for offering a speculative opinion about why.
And the sources we looked at reveal that the conflict was likely never truly just about the art or the audience demographic, or even the precise legal standing of McIntyre's speculation. It seems it was really about a pre-existing vendetta.
Yeah, that hidden history seems key.
Zachary's disproportionate 24-hour ultimatum, his alleged private monitoring. It strongly suggests he was perhaps just waiting for the perfect pretext to deploy a silencing maneuver against a long-standing personal critic he already disliked.
So this whole journey really highlights the extreme speed with which speculative opinion can be weaponized into a legal claim, doesn't it? Even when it's prefaced with clear disclaimers like, can I start a conspiracy?
Absolutely. For you, especially if you're a content creator yourself, the core lesson here is about that blurring line. The line between critique, speculation, and potentially actionable defamation in an industry where reputation is absolute currency. And legal threats are often cheaper or at least faster than actual legal battles.
Yeah, the threat itself can be the weapon.
Exactly. Yeah. And this situation provides a really crucial masterclass for all content creators regarding, well, ethical integrity. If transparency and full disclosure are truly essential, as Zachary himself claimed when defending his reputation against the payment implication,
right,
then the immediate aggressive legal pursuit of a clearly speculative opinion about payment seems to fundamentally demonstrate a disregard for the principles of free and open commentary, doesn't it? It prioritized achieving silence over actually engaging with the criticism.
That's a really sharp point.
Yeah.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Okay.
If a commentator whose entire job is basically predicated on routine criticism of others immediately resorts to serious legal threats the very moment they are criticized, even speculatively, do they still retain the necessary moral authority to participate ethically in the commentary space?
Does the attempt to silence criticism immediately disqualify the critic from the profession itself? Tough question.
It really is. We've analyzed today how quickly personal, long-standing battles can be disguised as these high-minded legal or ethical disputes.
Yeah. And the public ultimately gets to decide who wins in the court of opinion. Is it the one who demonstrates that thick skin necessary to weather valid criticism even when it's harsh? Or is it the one who uses the law or the threat of the law to try and bully their critics into silence?
That's a powerful point to end on. Thank you for joining us in unpacking this complex and frankly kind of ridiculous situation in depth.
It was certainly a journey. Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.